The lesson objective of this video, students find circumference of a circle and arc lengths. So this first part should be review. We've already talked about circumference earlier in the year. The circumference of a circle, you have two ways you can find it. You can do pi times the diameter or 2 pi r. Whenever they ask for the exact circumference, that's when we leave pi in the answer. And whenever they want the approximate circumference, then we use the pi button, or 3.14. So for example 1, we're going to find the circumference of a circle with a radius of 9 centimeters. So since they gave me the radius, I'll go ahead and use c equals 2 pi r. So that means I'm just doing 2 times pi times the radius of 9, or 18 pi. 18 pi would be the exact circumference. It didn't say exact, so I'll go ahead and find the approximate one. So in your calculator, you just put 18 times pi, and if we do it to the nearest tenth, it would be approximately 56.5 centimeters. And that's if we are measuring around the outside of the circle. Okay, circumference is going around the outside of a circle. It's similar to a perimeter on a polygon. All right, now if we look at example B, we're going to find the radius of a circle with a circumference of 26 meters. So this time they've given me the circumference and I want to find the radius. So I'm going to have to work backwards, but I'm still going to use c equals 2 pi r. So I plug in what I know. The circumference is 26 equals 2 pi r. I have to divide both sides by 2 pi. And so the 2 pi's cancel out, so 26 divided by 2 pi, you should get a radius of approximately 4.1 meters. Now you want to put that in your calculator to make sure that you are getting that answer. Something that's commonly happens. If you have your calculator, what you're doing is you're taking 26, you're dividing it by 2, and you're dividing it by pi. Okay? Or you can say 26 divided by and use parentheses 2 pi. And that's the way that you can get it to come out right. If you do 26 divided by 2 times pi, it's actually going to give you a different number. So make sure that you can get that answer in your calculator. And that way you know you're doing it right. Alright, and here's a really rough one. Find the exact circumference of a circle with a diameter of 11 feet. So c equals pi d. So in this case, the circumference would equal 11 pi feet. It said exact, so I left pi in the answer. Alright, so here's one for you to try on your own. Find the circumference of a circle with a diameter of 23 inches. Go ahead and give me the exact and approximate answer. Pause the video now. So for the exact circumference, you should have gotten 23 pi inches. And the approximate circumference would be 72.3 inches. And here's another one for you to try on your own. What is the radius of a circle with a circumference of 47 feet to the nearest tenth? Pause the video. Alright, so using c equals 2 pi r, you should have got that the radius was 47 divided by 2 pi, and that comes out to approximately 7.5 feet. In example 2, it says to the nearest meter, how far will a wheel travel when it makes 35 revolutions? And note that the units in the drawing are millimeters. So we need to watch our units because I have meter and millimeters, so I'm going to have to do some conversions. Okay, so it wants to know how far it's going to go in 35 revolutions. If it goes 1 revolution, that means basically I've gone around the wheel 1 time. 1 revolution is going to equal the circumference. So if I look at the information that they gave me in the drawing, and I add up all of the dimensions, 20 plus 15 plus 20, I find that the diameter of my wheel is 55 millimeters. So my circumference is pi d, or 55 times pi millimeters. And so if you put that into your calculator, 55 times pi, you get 172.8 millimeters. But now we said we want to find how far it goes in 35 revolutions. So 35 revolutions times 172.8 millimeters per revolution I end up getting 6,048 millimeters. Now a millimeter is 1,000th of a meter. So that means that 1 meter equals 1,000 millimeters. So if I want to convert 6,048 millimeters into meters, that means I want to have my millimeters on the bottom and my meters on top, and that way the millimeters will cancel out and I will be left with meters. So 1 meter is 1,000 millimeters. And so basically 6,048 divided by 1,000, it equals 6.048 meters. And this one, it said to the nearest meter, so I go ahead and I round it. So approximately 6 meters is how far it will go in 35 revolutions. So now it's your turn to figure one out. A skateboard wheel has a diameter of 56 millimeters. How many revolutions does it take for the wheel to make when it's traveling 3 meters? So you're going to have to work backwards on this one. Go ahead and pause the video now. You want to remember that the distance is just going to be the circumference times the number of revolutions. And again, we need to watch our units because I have millimeters and meters. So if it travels 3 meters, let's convert that to millimeters. How far did it travel in millimeters? It went 3,000 millimeters. And that's going to equal the circumference, which is going to be 56 pi, because the diameter is 56, times however many revolutions it takes. I don't know how many revolutions, so I'm just going to use x for now. So to get the x alone, we need to divide by 56 pi. And so when you put 3,000 in your calculator and divide it by 56 pi, you should get that x equals 17 revolutions. All right, the next thing we're going to talk about is arc length. When I'm talking about arc length, I'm talking about measuring it in feet or inches or millimeters, etc. Okay, it's as if I took a tape measure and I lay it down on the edge of the circle and I see how far is it from A to B if I lay my tape measure on the edge of the circle. So arc length is talking about how long it is. Arc measure is what we've done before. That's always in degrees. And so basically the arc length is just going to be what piece of the circle are we talking about, what fraction. And we get that fraction by taking the arc degrees over 360, because 360 is the whole circle. And then we just multiply that by the circumference, which of course is 2 pi r. So it's important to memorize to find the arc length. You just take the arc measure over 360 times the circumference. So let's take a look at an example. All right, we're going to find the arc length of AB. So that means I'm finding how long is it from A to B as we go along the edge of the circle. So the length of AB, well, how much of the circle am I talking about? I've got 88 degrees out of a possible 360. So 88 over 360 times my radius of 2 pi r, so 2 pi times a radius of 2. And so if you put that into your calculator, the length of AB, you do 88 divided by 360 times 2 pi times 2, and you should come up with approximately 3.07 meters. So punch that in your calculator, make sure you're getting the same answer that I am. All right, let's take a look at another example. Now I'm going to find the measure of RS. They gave me the length, but not the measure. So again, my formula, I know that the length is equal to the arc degrees over 360 times 2 pi r, or times the circumference. So I plug in what I know. They told me that the length was 38. The arc degrees, I don't know, that's what I'm trying to find, over 360 times 2 pi times 12.3, which is my radius. All right, so I want to get x alone, so first thing I'm going to do is take care of that 360 on the bottom by multiplying both sides by 360. Now those cancel out. And I get 13,680 equals x times 24.6 pi. I just doubled the 12.3. 2 times 12.3 is 24.6. So now I have to divide both sides by 24.6 pi. And so I get that x is equal to 177 degrees. All right, so here's one for you to try on your own. Find the arc length of AB. Pause the video now. Okay, so you should have done 97 over 360 times 2 times pi times 4. And if you put all that in your calculator, you should have come up with approximately 6.77 feet. And here's another one for you to try. Now we're going to work backwards and find the circumference of circle Z. So again, the length is going to equal the fraction times the circumference. So work backwards to get the circumference alone. All right, to set it up then, we use the arc length equals arc degrees over 360 times the circumference. And we plug in what we know, solve for what we don't know. So the arc length was 3.44 centimeters. The arc degrees were 60, so 3.44 equals 60 over 360 times circumference. And I'm going to go ahead and reduce that fraction. So 3.44 is equal to 1/6 c. So to get the c alone, I just have to multiply by the reciprocal, which is 6 on both sides. And I get that the circumference is equal to 20.64, and that would be centimeters. So all the way around the circle is 20.64 centimeters. 1/6 of it is right here, 3.44. All right, here's another example. So the outer parts of the belt form 180-degree arcs. We're going to find the distance around the outside of this belt to the nearest foot. So if I look at the figure, they told me that this portion right here is 180, and this portion right here is 180. So basically, if I want to find the distance all the way around, I've got two semicircles. And then I also have these two sides. So two semicircles plus two sides. So to find the circle, of course, two semicircles is going to equal one whole circle. So the area of the circle, the circumference of the circle, excuse me, is 2 pi r. And so they told me that the outside radius is 8. So you want to be careful and make sure you use the right information. This outside radius is 8 feet. We're not actually going to use this because this is just the inside radius. So be careful and make sure they don't throw you off with extra information. All right, so 2 pi r, that is 2 pi times my radius of 8, or 16 pi. And that is approximately 50.3 feet. And then my two sides are each 20 feet long, so 2 times 20, and so they equal 40 feet. So if we add that all together, the total distance is going to equal 90.3 feet. Oops. All right, so we've got one more to look at here. We're going to find the perimeter of this figure. So again, I want to evaluate what I'm looking at here. I'm looking at 1, 2, 3 sides there, 1, 2, 3 sides there, and then I have this arc here. Well, I know that this is also a right angle, which means this is 90 degrees, which means this arc is 90 degrees. And so out of 360, 90 is just a fourth of it. So that is going to equal 1/4 of the circumference of a circle. So that part, we got 1/4 times the circumference, which is 2 pi times 3.5. And I know that because all the radii of a circle have to be congruent, and so if this is 3.5 on my rectangle, then this is also 3.5 here. Anyway, the radius is 3.5 for the circle. Alright, so that's the arc part, and then I've got 3.5 and 3.5 and 3.5 going around the square, plus 7, plus another 3.5, plus 7 to go around the rectangle. And so 1/4 times 2 pi times 3.5 comes out to approximately 5.5. And all those other sides added up came out to 28. And so altogether, it's 33.5 feet. And that concludes this video. Thank you.